Dr. Elena Vasquez pressed her face against the cold metal window of the research station. Below her, the gas giant Vardak spun slowly in the darkness of space. Its orange and red clouds swirled like paint mixed in water. She had watched this view for 3 years now, but today something felt wrong. The Kelani Research Station was not just a place of science. It was the first bridge between two worlds that had never known each other existed. 3 years ago, when the insect-like Kelani had first made contact with humans, everyone thought it would change everything. Elena had been picked to come here because she was good with languages, but the Kelani did not speak with words. They spoke with smells. Learning their language had been the hardest thing Elena had ever done. She had to train her nose to pick up tiny differences in the chemicals they released into the air. Happy smells were different from sad smells. Angry smells were sharp and made her eyes water. Fear smells made her stomach turn, but she had learned. And more than that, she had made friends. Keffer was the lead scientist on the Kelani side. He looked like a giant ant that could walk on 2 legs, with 4 arms that moved like a dancer when he got excited about his work. His shell was deep brown with gold spots that showed his age and wisdom. When he was happy, he smelled like flowers. After rain. Right now, Keffer smelled like burning metal. Elena turned away from the window and walked quickly to the communication room. The Kelani had been acting strange all morning. Their usual flower smells were gone. Instead, the air tasted bitter and sharp. Something was coming, and they knew it. She found Keffer standing in front of the long-range sensors. His 4 arms moved across the controls like he was playing a piano. But the music this piano made was the electronic beeping of space radar. "What is it?" Elena asked. She had learned to speak some of their smell language, but when things were serious, they used the translation machines. Keffer's smell got stronger. Burning metal mixed with something that reminded Elena of a hospital. "Ships," he said through the translator. His voice came out flat and electronic, but she could hear the fear underneath. Many ships, coming fast. Elena looked at the sensor display. Green dots showed the normal traffic around Vorthek. Trading ships from the Kelani home world. A few research vessels like theirs. But now there were red dots on the edge of the screen. Lots of them, moving toward the station like arrows shot from a bow. "How many?" she asked. 67 ships, warships. Keffer's 4 hands never stopped moving. "They are Drakter." Elena had heard that name before. The Kelani had told her stories about the Drakter. They were lizard-like beings who traveled from world to world, taking what they wanted. They did not trade or make friends. They took slaves and resources and left empty worlds behind them. "Are you sure?" Elena asked, but she already knew the answer. The Kelani were never wrong about things like this. Keffer turned to look at her. His large black eyes reflected the red lights of the warning signals that had started flashing around the room. "They have found us," he said. "They have found our world." Elena felt her heart start beating faster. The Kelani had always been afraid this would happen. Their home world was beautiful and rich, but they were not fighters. They were scientists and artists and farmers. They had no warships, no weapons that could stop an invasion. "How long until they get here?" she asked. 2 hours. Maybe less. Elena ran to her own control station and started typing commands into the computer. She had to warn Earth. The human government needed to know that their first alien friends were about to be attacked, but as she worked, she heard a new sound. The deep rumble of engines being pushed beyond their limits. Through the window, she could see the Kelani defense platforms moving into position around their home world. They looked like metal flowers with guns instead of petals. But Elena knew they would not be enough. The Kelani had 6 defense platforms. The Drakter had 67 warships. "Elena," Keffer said. His smell had changed again. Now it was like cold metal and old rain, the smell of sadness. You must leave. Your ship can escape. We will stay and fight, but you must warn your people. Elena shook her head. I am not leaving you. You must. If both our peoples die today, no one will remember that we tried to be friends. Elena wanted to argue, but she knew he was right. Her small research ship could probably escape if she left. Now. But if she stayed, she would just be one more person for the colony to worry about protecting. She started the emergency transmission to Earth. Her fingers shook as she typed the message. It was short because there was no time for long explanations. This is Dr. Elena Vasquez at Colony Research Station. We are under attack by hostile alien forces called the Drakter, 67 warships. The colony are our allies, and they need help. They are peaceful people who do not deserve this. Please send help, please. She hit the send button and watched the message disappear into space, traveling faster than light toward Earth. It would take 6 hours to get there. But the attack would start in less than 2 dots as she finished the transmission. The first explosions lit up the darkness outside. The Drakter had arrived. Elena watched through the window as the colony defense platforms opened fire. Bright blue beams of energy reached out across space toward the attacking ships. For a moment, she felt hope. Maybe the colony were stronger than they thought. Then the Drakter returned fire. The enemy weapons were different. Instead of clean blue beams, they shot red bolts that twisted through space like angry snakes. When they hit the defense platforms, the metal did not just break. It melted and twisted into horrible shapes. One by one, the platforms went dark. Keffer stood beside Elena at the window. His smell was now like ashes and cold wind, the smell of grief. It is over, he said. We fought as well as we could. But Elena was not watching the battle anymore. She was looking at her communication screen. The message to Earth had been sent. Somewhere out there in the darkness, her people would receive the call for help. She just hoped they would answer with more than words. Admiral Sarah Chun sat in the war room deep inside Luna Command. The message from Dr. Vasquez had arrived 6 hours ago, and she had not slept since. Around the long metal table sat the most important people in human space. Politicians from Earth, military leaders from Mars, scientists from the outer colonies, all of them talking at once. We cannot fight an entire alien fleet, said Senator Williams. His face was red and sweaty, even though the room was cool. We barely have 40 ships in our entire navy. They have nearly 70 warships. General Morrison from Mars Colony nodded his head. The senator is right. We need to think about this carefully. Maybe we can negotiate. Offer them something they want more than the colony. Admiral Chun listened. To them argue, but she was not really hearing their words. Instead, she was remembering her first meeting with Keffer 2 years ago. The colony scientist had been so excited to meet humans. He had spent hours showing her pictures of his home world, green forests that went on forever, cities that looked like they were grown from living trees instead of built from metal and stone. He had also shown her pictures of his family. Colony did not have children the way humans did. Instead, they laid eggs in special nurseries that the whole community took care of. Keffer had 17 little ones that he helped raise. In the pictures, they looked like tiny versions of their elders, with bright shells that would darken as they grew up. Shun wondered if those little ones were still alive. Admiral, Senator Williams said louder, are you listening? We need to contact these Drakter and see what they want. Chun looked up at the politician. I know what they want, Senator. I have read the reports. She pressed a button on the table and the lights dimmed. A holographic display appeared in the air above them. It showed star maps and pictures and reports that had taken 3 years to gather. The Drakter hegemony, Chun said. 17 conquered worlds. 4 billion beings enslaved. They do not negotiate. They do not trade. They take everything and leave nothing behind. The pictures changed. Now they showed Draketer slave camps. Beings from different worlds working in mines and factories. Some looked almost human. Others were covered in fur or had extra arms. All of them looked broken. This is what they do, Chun continued. They find worlds with intelligent life and they take everything. The strong ones become workers. The smart ones become breeding stock to make more workers. The rest they kill. Senator Williams shifted in his chair. Surely we can offer them something else. Technology. Resources from our outer colonies. Chun shook her head. Senator, you are not understanding. The Kelani are not just our allies. They are our friends. They have shared their knowledge with us. They have helped us understand the galaxy. And more than that, they are good people. She pressed another button. The display showed recordings from the research station. Kelani scientists working with human researchers. Kethver teaching Elena how to read their chemical language. Young Kelani showing human children how to grow crystal gardens. They welcomed us when they could have feared us, Chen said. They trusted us when they had no reason to. And now they are calling for help. General Morrison leaned forward. Admiral, I understand your feelings, but we have to be realistic. Even if we sent every ship we have, we would still be outnumbered. And if we lose, Earth becomes defenseless. Chun smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator that had found its prey. General, you are thinking like the old Earth military. You are thinking about fair fights and equal numbers. She pressed another button and new images appeared. But we are not the old Earth military anymore. The pictures showed ships that looked different from the normal human fleet. They were longer and darker, with strange weapons mounted on their hulls. In other pictures, soldiers in black armor practiced fighting in zero gravity. Their movements were too fast and too smooth to be completely human. For 3 years, we have been preparing for this day, Chun said. Not for the Draketer specifically, but for someone like them. We knew that somewhere in the galaxy, there would be bullies who thought they could take what they wanted from peaceful people. Senator Williams looked confused. What are those ships? I have never seen them in any military reports. Project Blackwatch, Chun said. Classified until today. We have been building a special fleet and training special soldiers. They are designed for one job. To make sure that bad people understand there are consequences for their actions. She stood up and walked to the window that looked out at the Luna shipyards. Even from here, she could see the dark shapes moving between the normal ships. They were preparing to launch. The politicians can argue about negotiations, Chien said. The generals can worry about fair fights. But I have made my decision. We are going to the Kelani system. We are going to rescue our friends. And we are going to make sure the Draketer understand that some things in this galaxy are protected. General Morrison stood up too. Admiral, you do not have the authority to start a war. Chun turned back to face the room. I am not starting a war, General. The Draketer started the war when they attacked peaceful people. I am just going to finish it. She walked to the communication panel and opened a channel to the fleet command. This is Admiral Chun. Activate Protocol 7. All Blackwatch units to prepare for immediate deployment. Target, Kelani system. Mission, show the galaxy what happens when you hurt our friends. The room erupted in arguments and shouting, but Chun was not listening anymore. Through the window, she could see the first of the dark ships leaving the shipyard. They moved like sharks swimming through the black ocean of space. The Draketer had made a mistake. They had thought humans were just another weak species that would watch their friends die and do nothing. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Chun smiled again, and this time it was the smile of someone who knew that justice was coming. Commander Vex Thul stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the slave ships loading their cargo. The Kelani had been easier to break than most species. A few dead cities, and they had surrendered completely. Now thousands of the insect creatures were being herded into transport ships like cattle. Vexthal was proud of his work. His reptilian face showed satisfaction as his yellow eyes watched the loading process. The Kelani would make excellent workers. They were smart but not aggressive. Perfect for the mines and factories of the hegemony. "Commander," his weapons officer called out. "We are detecting ships approaching the system." Vexthal barely looked up from his reports. "Probably more Kelani trying to escape. Destroy them." "Sir, these are not Kelani ships. The computer says they are from the species called humans." Now, Vexthal paid attention. He had heard of the humans. They were the ones who had made contact with the Kelani 3 years ago. Intelligence reports said they were a young species with limited technology, probably coming to beg for their friends' lives. "How many ships?" he asked. 37, sir." Vexthal laughed. It was a harsh sound like rocks grinding together. 37. Ships against 67. These humans are either very brave or very stupid. He activated the communication system. "Open a channel to the human fleet." The main screen showed the approaching human ships. They looked primitive compared to Draktar. Vessels. Simple metal hulls with basic weapon systems. Nothing impressive. "This is Commander Vexthal of the Draktar hegemony," he said into the microphone. "You are outnumbered and outgunned. Turn around now and we will let you live. The Kelani belong to us now." The response came quickly. A human female appeared on the screen. She wore a dark uniform with silver stars on her shoulders. Her face was calm, but her eyes were hard as steel. "This is Admiral Chun of the Terran Fleet," she said. "You have attacked our allies and enslaved innocent people. You have exactly one chance to release the Kelani and leave this system." Vexthal laughed again. "Or what, human? Your tiny fleet will fight my armada?" Admiral Chun smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Commander, you have misunderstood something important. This is not a negotiation. This is us telling you what is going to happen." The communication ended. Vexthal stared at the blank screen for a moment, then turned to his crew. "These humans think they can threaten us. Show them what real power looks like. All ships, open. Fire." But before his fleet could shoot, the humans attacked first. The human ships had spread out into a formation that Vexthal did not recognize. Instead of charging forward like most species did, they had positioned themselves at strange angles around his fleet. When they fired, Vexthal understood why. The human weapons were different from anything he had seen before. Instead of energy beams or plasma bolts, they fired solid projectiles that moved faster than his sensors could track. The first salvo hit 3 of his cruisers before his crew even realized they were under attack. The Draktar shields, which could stop the strongest energy weapons, did nothing against the human projectiles. The metal slugs punched through the energy barriers like they were not even there. Then they hit the ship hulls and kept going, tearing through armor and bulkheads until they came out the other side. 3 ships exploded in balls of fire and metal. "Return fire!" Vexthal screamed. "All ships, return fire!" The Draktar fleet turned their weapons on the human ships and unleashed everything they had. Plasma cannons and particle beams lit up the space between the fleets. But the human ships were moving in patterns that made no sense. They twisted and turned like dancers, always just ahead of where the Draktar weapons were aimed. More human. Projectiles slammed into Draktar ships. The metal slugs moved so fast they heated up from friction with space dust, turning into streaks of burning metal that carved through anything they hit. "Commander," his tactical officer shouted. "We have lost 8 ships. How are they moving so fast?" Vexthal did not answer because he did not know. The human ships should not be able to move like that. Their engines were too small and their hulls too heavy. But somehow they were dancing around his fleet like leaves in a storm. Then something even worse happened. Small objects launched from the human ships and flew toward his flagship. At first, Vexthal thought they were missiles. But they were too small and moving too slowly. "Boarding pods," his security chief said. "The humans are trying to board us." Vexthal almost laughed. Boarding a Draktor warship was suicide. His crew were trained warriors with advanced weapons and armor. What could a few primitive humans do against them? The pods hit his ship's hull and burned through the metal like acid. Emergency alarms started ringing as the ship's atmosphere began leaking into space. Then the humans came through the holes. Vexthal watched the security cameras as the first human stepped into his ship. The creature was covered in black armor that seemed to absorb light. It moved wrong, too fast and too smooth, like a machine. Pretending to be alive, behind it came more humans, all wearing the same dark armor. They carried weapons that Vexthal did not recognize. When his security teams opened fire, the humans did not take cover or retreat. They just kept moving forward, their weapons spitting death. The first Draktor warrior to face them lasted exactly 3 seconds. "Seal the bridge," Vexthal ordered. "Lock down all access points." But it did not matter. The humans moved through his ship like ghosts. They knew exactly where to go and exactly what to destroy. Security doors that should have stopped an army barely slowed them down. Weapon systems that should have cut them to pieces seemed to miss them completely. In less than 10 minutes, the humans had reached the bridge. The last thing Vexthal saw, before the humans broke down his door, was one of them removing its helmet. Underneath was a human face, but the eyes were wrong. They glowed with a soft blue light that was definitely not natural. You wanted to know what real power looks like. The human said in perfect Draktor language, "Now you know." The ship's reactor exploded 30 seconds later. The space around Vorthak was filled with floating metal and fire. What had been 67 Draktor warships 6 hours ago was now nothing but wreckage drifting in the darkness. Admiral Chun stood on the bridge of her flagship and watched the rescue ships pulling Kelani survivors from the damaged transports. Dr. Elena Vasquez had survived. Her research station had been damaged but not destroyed. Chun could see her on the communication screen, tears running down her face as she hugged Kethver. The Kelani scientist's shell was cracked and his movements were slow, but he was alive. "Admiral," her communications officer said, "we are receiving surrender requests from the remaining Draktor ships." Chun looked at the tactical display. 12 enemy ships had survived the battle. They were damaged and trying to escape toward the edge of the system. Their crews were begging for mercy. "Ignore them," Chun said. "Ma'am, you heard me. Let them run." Chun turned away from the display. "But first, download everything from their computers. Ship logs, star charts, military reports. I want to know where they came from." It took 2 hours for the human ships to extract all the information from the fleeing Draktor vessels. "What?" they found made Chun's face go hard with anger. The data showed dozens of worlds under Draktor control. Billions of enslaved beings working in mines and factories. Breeding camps where intelligent species were forced to produce children that would never know freedom. One file showed a planet called Jarek Prime. It was the main fortress world of the Draktor hegemony. According to the data, over 10 million slaves from 17 different species worked there. The planet was protected by massive defense stations and thousands of ships. Chun called a meeting with her senior officers. They gathered in the war room of her flagship while outside the windows, human ships continued rescuing Kelani survivors. "We have a choice to make," Chun told them. "We can declare victory and go home. We saved the Kelani. Mission accomplished." Captain Rodriguez, her tactical officer, nodded. "That would be the smart move, Admiral. We have pushed our luck far enough. The Draktor will think twice before attacking anyone else." Chun shook her head. "Will they? Look at this data. They have been enslaving people for hundreds of years. One defeat will not stop them. They will just be more careful next time." She activated the holographic display and showed them images from Garek Prime, slave camps that stretched for miles. Factories where children who looked barely old enough to walk operated dangerous machinery. Breeding facilities that looked more like animal farms than places where intelligent beings lived. These people have been waiting for rescue for generations. Chun said, some of them do not even remember what freedom looks like. Their children have never known anything but slavery. Commander Webb spoke up from the corner of the room. He was the leader of the Blackwatch units, and his enhanced eyes glowed softly in the dim light. What are you proposing, Admiral? Chun looked around the room at her officers. These were good people who had signed up to protect Earth and her. Colonies, she was about to ask them to do something much bigger. I am proposing we end this, she said. Not just this battle, but all of it. The Draketer hegemony has been a cancer in this galaxy for too long. It is time to cut it out. Captain Rodriguez looked worried. Admiral, Garek Prime is heavily defended. The intelligence reports show orbital defense platforms, planetary shields, and a fleet of over 200 ships. Designed to fight other alien species, Webb said quietly. Not designed to fight us. Chun nodded. The Draketer build their defenses based on conventional tactics, energy shields against energy weapons, armor against kinetic projectiles, but our weapons work differently. Our tactics are different. She pulled up the tactical analysis that her computers had been working on. Their defense platforms are powerful but slow. Their ships are numerous but predictable. And most importantly, they have never faced an enemy that did not want to conquer them. What do you mean? Rodriguez asked. Every species the Draketer have fought wanted to take their territory or resources. So they fought back to protect what they had. But we do not want their planets or their wealth. We just want to free their slaves and make sure they never hurt anyone again. Chun changed the display to show a three-dimensional map of Garek Prime. We will not try to invade or occupy. We will target the slave compounds and command centers. Free the prisoners and destroy the infrastructure that keeps them enslaved. Webb smiled. It was not a pleasant expression on his enhanced features. Hit and run tactics. Strike fast, extract the slaves, and disappear before they can organize a response. Exactly. But first, we send a message to every slave on that planet. Let them know that help is coming. When we attack, they will be ready to help themselves. Chun activated the communication system and began recording a message. But she did not record it in English or even in Kelani. She recorded it in 17 different languages, one for each species enslaved on Garek Prime. People of Garek Prime, she said. This is Admiral Chun of the human fleet. We know you are prisoners. We know you have suffered, but your suffering is about to end. In 72 hours, we will come for you. When you see our ships in your sky, rise up, fight back. Your freedom is in your own hands, but you will not fight alone. She sent the message on all frequencies, aimed directly at Garek Prime. The Draketer would intercept it, of course. They would know exactly when the humans were coming. But Chun was counting on that. Admiral, Rodriguez said. If we tell them when we are coming, they will be ready for us. Chun smiled. Captain, they are going to be ready anyway. But now the slaves will be ready too. And there are a lot more slaves than there are guards. She turned to Webb. Commander, prepare your teams. We are going to give the galaxy a lesson it will never forget. We are going to show everyone what happens when you make humans angry. Webb nodded and left to prepare his soldiers. As he walked away, Chun could hear him talking to his team leaders over the radio. Full loadout, anti-armor weapons, breach charges, and remember, we are not there to take prisoners. We are there to free them. Chun looked out the window at the Kelani ships that were now safely escorted by human vessels. In a few days, those ships would return to a free Kelani homeworld. But millions of other beings on Garek Prime were still waiting for their freedom. The Drakter had made the mistake of thinking that humans would fight like everyone else. They were about to learn that humans did not just fight wars. They fought for justice. The attack on Galactic Prime lasted exactly 18 hours. When it was over, the fortress world that had been the heart of the Drakter hegemony was burning. But the flames came from empty guard towers and broken slave compounds, not from the cities where millions of freed beings were celebrating their first taste of freedom in generations. Admiral Chun stood in the main plaza of what had been the largest slave camp on the planet. Around her, beings from 17 different worlds were helping each other stand up for the first time as free people. Some were crying, others were laughing. Many were doing both at the same time. A small creature with blue fur and 6 arms approached. Chun. Its species was called the Vellani, and according to the records, they had been slaves for over 200 years. This one looked very old, with gray patches in its fur and scars on its arms from years of hard work. "Are you the human admiral?" it asked in broken galactic standard. "I am," Chun replied. The Vellani reached into a pouch on its side and pulled out something small and shiny. It was a piece of metal that had been polished until it gleamed like a mirror. Carved into its surface were symbols that Chun did not recognize. "This belonged to my great-grandmother," the Vellani said. "She was free once, before the Drakter came to our world. She hid this and passed it down to her children, and they passed it to their children. For 200 years, my family kept this as a reminder that we were once free people." The creature held out the metal piece to Chun. "Now we are free again. This should go to the one who gave us back our freedom." Chun felt tears in her eyes as she accepted the gift. "I cannot take something so precious from your family." "You are not taking it," the Vellani said. "I am giving it to you. Because now my children will make new treasures, free treasures." Similar scenes were happening all across Galactic Prime. The human Blackwatch teams had moved through the planet like ghosts, destroying guard posts and control centers while avoiding civilian areas. At the same time, the slaves had risen up just as Chun had hoped they would. Guards who had seemed powerful when facing helpless prisoners found themselves outnumbered 1,000 to 1 by people who had nothing left to lose. The Drakter fleet had arrived to defend their fortress world, but they found the humans waiting for them in orbit. This time there were no negotiations and no warnings. The battle was over before most of the Drakter ships knew it had started. Commander Webb found Chun as she was walking through a former weapons factory that slaves had turned into a temporary hospital. Beings who had been injured during the uprising were being treated by doctors from their own species. People who had been forced to work as medical slaves but could now use their skills to help instead of being ordered around. "Admiral," Webb said, "we have the final casualty reports." Chun stopped walking and turned to face him. "How many did we lose?" 17 wounded, 3 killed. Webb's enhanced face showed no emotion, but Chun could hear the satisfaction in his voice. "Enemy casualties are estimated over 50,000 military personnel. But more importantly, we freed 4.7 million slaves." Chun nodded. The numbers were important, but they did not tell the whole story. In the past 72 hours, the Drakter hegemony had collapsed completely. When news of Galactic Prime's liberation spread, slaves on other worlds had risen up too. Some Drakter commanders had tried to fight back, but most had simply run away. When they realized their entire empire was falling apart. "What about the other worlds?" Chun asked. "Free most of them. The Zenthari took back their homeworld 6 hours ago. The Kaplani liberated 3 mining colonies. Even species we had never heard of are sending messages thanking us for starting the revolution." Chun smiled. That had been the real plan all along. Humans could not free every slave in the galaxy by themselves. But they could show everyone that the Drakter were not as strong as they pretended to be. They could prove that bullies could. Be beaten if good people work together. Daughter Elena Vasquez joined them as they walked. She had insisted on coming to Galactic Prime to help with the medical relief efforts. Her translator device was working overtime as she moved between different species, helping coordinate the massive rescue operation. Elena, Chun said, "How are things going with the refugees?" "Better than expected," Elena replied. "Most of these people want to go home to their original worlds. The problem is that some of those worlds were destroyed centuries ago. We are going to need to find new homes for a lot of people." Chun had been thinking about that problem too. What about the Dua? Kelani, would they be willing to help? Elena smiled. "I already asked Kethver. He said the Kelani would be honored to share their worlds with other refugees. In fact, he is excited about the chance to learn from so many different species." 3 months later, Chun stood in the meeting hall of the new Galactic Council. It was not like the old council, which had been dominated by powerful species who made deals with each other while ignoring the weak. This new council had representatives from every freed world, including many species that most people had thought were extinct. The Kelani had become humanity's closest allies, but they were not the only ones. The Villani had turned out to be brilliant engineers once they were free to use their skills. The Zinthari were natural diplomats who helped different species understand each other. Even some former Drakter worlds had joined the council after their people overthrew their old leaders. Kethvar approached Chun as the meeting ended. His chemical scent was the smell of flowers and fresh rain, the Kelani equivalent of pure happiness. "Admiral," he said through his translator, "I have news from Earth. Your government has approved the intervention fleet proposal." Chun nodded. That was the final piece of the puzzle. Humanity would maintain a permanent fleet dedicated to responding to distress calls from anywhere in the galaxy. The Blackwatch units would be ready to deploy at a moment's notice whenever peaceful people faced threats they could not handle alone. "What about the name?" Chun asked. "Did they approve that too?" Kethver's scent shifted to something like laughter. "Yes, from now on, it will be officially known as the Justice Fleet, though I think most species will keep calling them by their nickname." Chun smiled. The nickname had started on Galactic Prime and spread throughout the galaxy. Other species had begun calling the human ships Deathworld Guardians. It was a name that struck fear into the hearts of bullies and hope into the hearts of their victims. As Chun left the council building, she thought about how much the galaxy had changed. 3 months ago, the strong had preyed on the weak, and everyone accepted it as the natural order. Now predators had to worry about something predating them. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Earth's children were watching, and they did not approve of bullies. Anyone who forgot that lesson would get a reminder they would never forget. The age of unchecked cruelty was over. The age of justice had begun.